Hi everyone, and welcome once again to Ruby's Classic Cooking. And today I'm making beef stew with dumplings and barley, which is an old English favorite, barley. Not many other people eat it besides the Brits, but that's okay. My roots are British. And guess what? we like our barley sometimes. You have to really cook it well, or it's like eating little pebbles in your food. So that's the downside of barley. Now, let's move on with this recipe, and right now I've got a nice lump of beef here. Now, beef stew. You can approach this a couple of ways. You can buy your stew beef already chopped up into nice cubes, but you know what? You're going to pay a premium price for what's probably a really poor grade of beef, because you don't know what you're getting when you buy stew beef. And around here they want $7.99 a pound, which is like, I know, about roughly $18 a kilo, which is quite expensive for beef. And this week they have this cut of beef, which is inside round roast, and it's $6.99 a pound, which is a much nicer cut of meat, and it's only $15.41 a kilo. Now, what I need here, what I've got here is a piece that's about a kilo, a little bit over a kilo, well, pretty much exactly a kilo if you look at the thing here. This recipe calls for 2 pounds of stew beef, and that's a kilo is a bit over 2 pounds, like maybe a couple of ounces. When you're making stew, a couple of ounces doesn't make that much of a difference. Now you can see this is a boneless roast, which is ideal for making into my stewing beef. Now they've helpfully put some twine on this roast, which I'm going to have to remove before I chop it up. But what I'm going to do is cut this into about, probably 1.5 inches, which should be about 3 centimeters cubes. And just remember, you're doing this for family, so they don't have to be absolutely perfect cubes. They can be a little bit irregular, a little bit not quite exactly cube shaped. They can be rectangular, as long as you get the idea, right? Let me get rid of these strings. There. Now, I'm going to take my nice butcher knife here and I'm going to cut cubes. I'm going to start out just by slicing like this. See, no gristle, not a whole lot of fat in this nice piece of meat. And I'm just going to roughly chop these into cubes. Now you can cook a piece of stew meat with all of it in one big block if you want to, but personally I find it better to cut it up into cubes. It's a lot easier to serve done up in cubes. You see? Nice cubes of meat. And once I've got my meat prepped, then I'll move on to my veggies. I'm going to be putting an onion, some celery, carrots, potatoes, and barley in with this stew when I put it on to cook. I'm also going to be adding some beef stock. I'm going to be adding some of this. Instead of adding gravy, you can add, this calls for steak spice, which I'm going to add, but also calls for some packets of powdered gravy mix, which I find mostly tastes just like salt. So I'm going to be adding some of this, better than bouillon, which I find is an excellent addition to something like that. Don't know if it's available in your neighborhood or not, but something similar. I find it's very, very good stuff. So I'm just going to, like I said, whack these up into rough cubes, because I'm going to put them on in some hot oil with my chopped up onion, and I'm going to brown these pieces of meat. You want to brown them on all 4 sides of the cubes. And then I'm going to brown my onions, and I'll be adding some water to that, getting my veggies prepped, and getting my veggies on with it. Now let's just get this meat cut. One of my viewers asked my husband, he said, hey, how about beef stew with barley and dumplings? And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. So thanks, Matt, for the idea. I'm making this just for you. Hope you like it. Oh, and I got some news from YouTube about my channel. I have 30,000 people who have viewed some of my videos, which, hey, I'm very excited about. May not sound like a lot in the YouTube world, but to me it's a large number of people that have reached out to me, that I have maybe given them some information. Okay, so there's my meat all done. And I have this nice peeled onion here, and I'm just going to chop this up. Okay, you chefs out there, I'm probably not using the right knife to do this with, but you know what? That's me. I'm a home cook. We grab whatever implement is handy and use it. We don't have to go back to our knife block and get exactly the correct knife to use, because nobody trained us how to do that, so we wing it a lot. In the homemaker universe, we wing it a lot. So sorry if my choice of knives isn't what you would choose yourself, but you know what? When you're working in your kitchen, you go right ahead and add use whatever knife you want. Okay, I'm gonna get my oil. I've got my nice big stew pot here, which I'm gonna add a bunch of oil to. I'm gonna put it on my stove and heat that up till it's almost smoking hot. Then I'm going to put this meat in. I'm going to turn it so that all sides get browned. And my onion is going to go in there. And so are my 2 stalks of celery once I get them washed and trimmed, because I'm not adding the extra dirt to my stew, okay? I don't believe that dirt adds flavor. I was brought up that way, so I'm going to cut these up into 4 big pieces and pop them all in my pan together when I'm cooking. So I'll be back and show you what that looks like. Alrighty, I have browned, it's about 10 minutes later, and I have browned my beef chunks, and I have sweated my onions, and I have added chunks of celery, which I also sweated out. I also added 2 teaspoons of steak sauce. So this one's what I have, steak spice. This is what I have. Steak spice, any kind of steak spice you've got, your favorite. First of all, put your oil, olive oil preferred, but this is what I have, and you add your oil to the bottom of your pan, heat it up till it's getting really hot, almost smoking hot. And then you put your beef cubes in and start to brown them, and add your onion, your 1 chopped up onion. And then you brown those all up, and as you add them in, you put a teaspoon of your steak sauce on top, stir it around, and brown them. And as they continue to brown, and you add your celery in, add another teaspoon of the steak sauce and stir that all in so you've got it all nice and browned. Okay, and now I've got this all browned up and everything. Now I'm going to add in 2 cups of water to that. I'm going to stir that around. Then I'm going to take that back to my stove and bring that to a boil. I'm going to make sure any brown bits that are sticking here are pulled off the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to take my beef chunks and my celery out of here, or just my beef chunks out of here, and put them to one side while I get the rest of the veggies on here. Alright, I'll be right back, show you the next step. And while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to get my veggies ready. I've got 4 carrots here. And I've got a turnip, purple top sweet, we call them around here. They're also known as rutabagas. Of course, I think they only call them rutabagas so I can charge you more for them. I'm going to peel this, and I'm going to chop it up with my handy dandy turnip chopper. I also have a 1/2 cup of barley here, which I'm also going to add to my stew. This takes a long time to cook, so I want to make sure it goes in early on. So, I also have here my better than bouillon. I put 4 teaspoons of that into 4 cups of nice hot water, so I can make a nice sauce to add to my beef stew, my budding beef stew here. So let's get on with this. I'll add this to this first. Or you can use 4 packets of gravy, of powdered gravy mix if you want to. There we go, four teaspoons of this. There, okay. All right. Okay, 2 hours have gone by and I'm adding in my beef stock, my gravy. Then I'm going to put in my turnip and my carrots, and I'm going to let those cook for 20 minutes. Then I'm going to add in my potatoes. So let me just put these in with my pot of beef stew and then add the potatoes. Yum. Alrighty, so back in here, I'm going to add all my carrots, and I'm going to cover my pot and let it go for 20 minutes. Yum. And if you want to make these nice, even cubes of veggies, go for it. If they're not, that's okay too, because your family is eating this, and they're not as fussy as customers at a restaurant. If they are, you know what? They can help out with the veggie prep. That's the difference with being a home cook. One of the differences of being a home cook than being a restaurateur. Your customers can help you out in the kitchen. I'm just going to stir these all together here. There. So I've just added my 4 cups of stock, of my beef stock mixed with water. Or if you make gravy, your gravy, okay? And after that, I'll be making the dumplings to go on top. So I'll bring you back in 20 minutes when I'm doing my potatoes. Okay, 20 minutes later, and these veggies are starting to get a little softened by the cooking. Now all the potatoes are going in. All my cubed up potatoes. Cut them all to a constant kind of shape. You don't want them to be too large. You want them to be about the same size. And they call for 7 potatoes in this recipe. So I put 7 potatoes, 4 carrots, a small turnip, an onion, and 1 kilo or 2 pounds of roast beef. And now I'm going to make the dumplings. These are now the potatoes in here. This is going on for 20 minutes. You see I have this nice large pot here. And you need a nice big stew pot. This one's about 6 liters, I think, which is about, I never can figure out how many quarts that is. But you need a nice big Dutch oven or stew pot to make this in. It's about half full right now. And then I'm going to be adding the dumplings on top. So, you see all my 20 minutes, I'll be back. Show you my potatoes and get the dumplings on. Okay, I'm going to mix the dumplings up now. Now that I've got the potatoes in there. I'm going to start out with 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. That's Canadian. Now, if you're in the UK or the United States, that would be strong flour or bread flour. And don't worry, metric people. All of the metric equivalents will be in my description below when I write this recipe up, okay? So, 1.5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking soda. That's 10 milliliters. And I made my own little flat area here so I can scrape it off level. You don't want to have, you want to be pretty accurate when you're measuring your baking powder. And this is baking powder, not baking soda. Different ingredient entirely, okay? 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and I'm just gonna eyeball 3/4 teaspoon of salt into my dumplings, just using my teaspoon, okay? So there, I'm just gonna put that in there. And I have my pastry blender. You can see what this looks like. It's if you have one of these, it's great. If not, you can use 2 knives or 2 forks to do this. So you want to mix this around. So you have your flour and your baking powder and your salt kind of all mixed together here. And then you want to add in 3 tablespoons. that's 45 milliliters of shortening. Now if you don't have shortening available in your neighborhood, whatever you would normally use in pastry, if that's butter or whatever it is, that's what you would choose to put in this. Okay? And probably butter is a good choice. Okay, now I'm just going to take my pastry blender and I'm going to blend this in until it makes like crumbly, looking like breadcrumbs. Okay? I'm just going to keep blending this in. And make sure your shortening and your flour mixture are integrated together. Because you're going to add milk to this, and you can't, if you don't want to toughen your dough, you don't want to mix it any more than you absolutely have to after you've added the milk. Okay? The other thing about cooking with dumplings is, once you've added your dumplings to your pot and put the lid on and put them on to cook, and it says leave them for 20 minutes, that means no peeking. Because if you do, your dumplings will not cook properly and you'll have these lumps of raw dough in there and not nice tender dumplings. Okay? So just remember, even if you're the person who has to peek at Christmas time at all your packages, and when it comes to dumplings, don't peek if you want them to turn out properly. If you peek, they're not going to be nice dumplings. And there'll be nobody to blame but you, because you looked. Make sure you get a nice tight lid on your pot too when you do that, because you want it to stay nice and hot inside of your pot when you're doing that. This isn't going to take very long to mix up because it's not a huge batch here, is it? And while a pastry cutter is not exactly an absolute essential in your kitchen, makes things like this a lot easier to do. And if you're making your own pastry, then, you have to do that. You need one of these. It's a lot easier than using 2 knives or 2 forks, let me tell you. Or a fork, let me tell you. And your pastry will turn out better too. Plus. Especially if you pick one up in a thrift store for next to nothing. I've got my breadcrumb looking texture. See, like that? Now it looks like breadcrumbs. So, I don't have any big lumps of shortening in here. It's all integrated into the flour. Okay? So now, 3/4 cup of milk, which is about 170 milliliters. Okay? Okay, correction, that's probably more like about 190 milliliters of milk. And now I'm going to add my milk, my chilled milk. Now once you've added the milk, you don't want to stir this too much, just until you've got it combined, because you don't want to overwork your dough. You'll form the gluten in it, and then you'll have tough dumplings. You won't have nice tender ones. When you're dealing with a baking powder bread, you want to keep it tender. You don't want to develop the gluten any more than you absolutely have to. Just a few quick strokes to make sure that all of your flour mixture is integrated with your milk. And that is all you want to do to it. Dumplings should be a little bit sticky, very sticky. See how that's very sticky dough? Clean it off, make sure it's all, everything is integrated where it should be. It makes a very soft, sticky dough. Oh, and by the way, this stew is supposed to make 8 servings. And there it is. Very quick and easy to mix together. And now, I'll be back when the potatoes are done and show you what I have to do to add the dumplings. I'm going to take 2 cups of the liquid out of my stew, and I'm going to put that to one side. Then I'm going to put the dumplings in, and when they're done, I'm going to pour that gravy back over top of my dumplings, and I'll be finished. I'll be right back. Okay, 20 minutes have gone by again, and I have my lovely my beef here going again. My lovely stew going here. Let me show you what it looks like. Here's my a nice spoonful of it here. Now the potatoes still have a ways to go, but that's okay because right now I'm going to take out 2 cups of this juice that's in here. Then I'm going to put my dumplings in and cook everything in here for another 20 minutes. So let's just dish out let's get out a couple of cups of juice out of here. That's close enough to 2 cups. Put that to one side. Now, just kind of get my veggies all organized here. And the stew, and I'm ready to pop my dumplings on top. All mixed up here, ready to go. It says big tablespoons full, so let's just get these in here on top of everything. And remember, 20 minutes to burble away in here and no peeking. No peeking. This is the trickiest part about getting dumplings that are not doughy and gross, is making sure that you have them bubbling underneath and that you don't lift the lid. You gotta trust in it. Trust in the process, you can't check on it. It's like open the oven when your cake is half cooked. Not a good plan. Okay. There's what it looks like now with my dumplings in on top. I'm going to pop my lid on and put this right on my stove. In 20 minutes, I'll be back to show you what happened. All right, 20 minutes has gone by. Time to lift the lid and see what we got under here. And add my 2 cups of gravy back in with a gentle stir. Ooh, that looks pretty good. Have a peek inside the pot. Yum. And now I'm just going to pour this over the top of them, like it says. And here we go. There we go. Now let's just put a dumpling and some goodies out here on the plate. Yum. It's not the prettiest looking dish, but definitely what you would call a winter warmer, that's for sure. And there you have it, dinner for 8. Look at that, yum. Does that look delectable? Let me just bring the camera in close and I'll be having some still pictures of that after. There you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed my recipe today, and I hope that you will like, subscribe, and make a comment. Give this recipe a try at home. And come back and join me next time on Ruby's Classic Cooking. Bye for now.